Welcome. Thank you for joining the Unitarian Universalist Westside congregation in our online service. I am the Reverend Dr. Nancy Hitt, Consulting Minister for this congregation. Our service today is titled CPR, Cycles, Patterns, and Resurrection. It is based on Principles 4 and 7. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And Sources 1 and 6. Direct experience of transcending mystery and awe, and the spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions that instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. We hope you find this to be a meaningful and thought-provoking experience. Our service is the result of a team of people, all of us standing 6 feet apart all the time. Our thanks to those of you who have offered feedback that has been incorporated into today's service, and to Steve Poiani and Jimmy Stevens for coordinating music and video. Our thanks to Jimmy for filming, editing, and uploading our service as well. Given the current realities of internet overload, etc., that's a real challenge. If you have never visited Westside before, we're glad you are joining us today. Please send your contact information and any questions you may have to the email address provided on our website. We hope to meet in person when we are able to resume services on site. Now I have just a few announcements for us today. First, it appears that our community, while scattered, is stable. This is good news. Our telephone networkers are enjoying the calls that they are making. If you are in need of anything, food, meds, mail, pet food, just another voice on the other end of your phone, please let them know. Or you can email me directly using the address posted on our website. My address is ministeruuwc@gmail.com. Also, your board met last Sunday and decided in a unanimous vote to extend our filmed services through June 7th. They have scheduled their next meeting for May 24th and will evaluate and update plans in keeping with coronavirus realities at that time. I also have a question for you. I want to ask all of you to let me know if you are willing and interested in attending an online meeting or class using an interactive website. It is possible to gather ourselves together as our customary RE classes and committee groups and carry on the conversations that we would ordinarily have if we would like to. So please let me know what you think. Thank you. Let us light our chalice together now. If you have set your own chalice or candle out, draw it close to you. The words for our lighting today will appear on your screen. As I speak them, please join me and light your chalice at home as I light this one here. Let us say this together. Let us light our chalice together now. Light and dark, day and night, sunlight and moonlight and stars. The cycles and patterns of nature surround us in unending glory. May we be ever aware of the world we live in. May we participate in its design and be accountable to its purposes. Shalom and amen. Please join me now in affirming the aspirations of our community which again will appear on your screen. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Blessed be. During the next few minutes, I invite you to relax and center yourself. Sit back comfortably wherever you are. You may either keep your eyes open and gaze at a meaningful focal point, or close them, however you are most comfortable. Begin to focus on your breathing. Breathing deeply and fully into your abdomen and out through your nose. Let your mind go blank, releasing irritation and tension, just breathing. Let yourself relax into yourself. Find yourself in a safe place within, one that holds purpose and meaning for you. And just be in that place, observing. Have you been here before? Is it the same or different now? Is there a design or pattern in place? Or perhaps the start of one? A path or an invitation? Let your mind's eye take in the details of this space. Register the sense of call on your life. Let that awareness be enough for now. Gather these perceptions to you and refocus your energy on your breathing. In and out and in again. Slowly returning your awareness to your own physical space. And when you are ready, open your eyes and reorient yourself to the space you are in. Shalom. It is our custom to share the things that bring us joy and that challenge and concern us with each other when we meet. Today I will offer a meditation addressing our common concerns and including the particular needs of our community. After speaking, I will light the large candle next to our chalice. I invite you also to light a candle at home for your personal joys and concerns. We will pause so that there is an opportunity to do that before concluding. Let us join together in spirit now. Author of life, who created all that is and invites us to participate in the grand design, hear our concerns as we give them voice. Hear our joys as we lift them. For the beauty of the earth we rejoice. For the return of spring in bud and leaf and flower. For the tiny, round green rocks that will someday be apricots, we rejoice. For the cycles of sun and moon that order our days and nights. For the intricacy of spider webs and the majesty of our mountains, we rejoice. It is good that these things are constant in their cycles, that we can depend on them to inspire and uplift us in these worrisome times. And we do worry. We worry about the future for all the people who are unsettled, restricted to home, and out of work and unpaid during the necessary response to COVID-19. We are concerned about how to take care of those who are sick when our resources are scarce. We are concerned about those who grieve without access to our usual human comforts. For those whose education has been interrupted, whose careers are on pause, we hold concern. For all of the isolation experienced by so many, for the too close for comfort living experienced by others, we hold concern. For those who lead the nations of earth, we hold grave concern that they be able to come together in new ways, leading our planet forward into new life for all. Our concerns are heavy. Sharing them together brings us comfort and hope. We include in our hope Robert and Bobby, hoping that despite their isolation from family and friends while in rehab and long-term care, they will be tenderly cared for. We include in our hope Ro as she grieves the loss of her sister, Darlene. We include in our hope ourselves amidst all the stresses of life. We include in our hope those we name in the silence now. For all of these, and for all that crowds our hearts and minds in both joy and concern, let us light our candles. Shalom. Now it's time. There he is. Coming again. Riley the rabbit is up from his nap, and he is looking forward to joining us. Here we go. Okay. Hi there. How are you? Sleepy bunny. You know, just napping away down under the little shelf here in his own little hutch space. So, you must have been really tired. That was an awful long nap you took. Yeah. I know, you've been hopping all over the place. Where'd you go? Oh, really? Wow. That's amazing. Riley says he's been hopping all over the world networking with other bunnies. Since bunnies can't get COVID-19, Riley can go anywhere. And is there news for us? Okay. Yeah? You're never going to believe this. Riley would like us to know that our world has had some changes since the virus that put us all in quarantine. First of all, Riley says there are a big number of untrue stories going around that really sound pretty good at first. Like the one about the dolphins swimming in the canals in Venice. The real dolphins are 500 miles away near Sardinia. They're not in Venice at all. And the story about the swans in Burano is only partly true because there are always swans there. Now, but there is also some really good news, and the best part is, it's true. Absolutely true. The thing about Venice is the water in the canals is a lot cleaner than it's been in a very long time. The mud has settled and people can see fish, silver fish, swimming through the canals. And did you know that the air in California and New York City, and especially even in Beijing, is a lot cleaner? In fact, in China, the air used to be gray. You couldn't even really see through it. But now the smog is gone and the air is clear and people can see the skies and they're blue for the first time in 3 years. Now it might be longer than that, but 3 years is how long Riley says they've been keeping track of that. Now, oh, this is truly amazing. Our whole planet has slowed down its vibrations in a significant way. Apparently, the fact that we're barely driving and that non-essential heavy machinery is shut down makes a difference that a seismograph can measure. Did you know that our traffic and machinery make the planet tremble? I didn't. But I'm glad to know that it's calmed down, and scientists are getting helpful data about the seismic activity on the planet. Wow, Riley, that is some amazing information about Mother Earth. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. You're a really big help when it comes to helping us stay connected to Mother Earth and all of the animal kingdom and all of that. Oh, and you look so sleepy and so tired again. Well, I guess that makes sense if you're going to hop all over the earth. So we'll let you go take another nap and look forward to hearing about your adventures again next week. Say goodbye, and we'll let Riley get back into his little hutch space. Our moment for all ages today is a poem titled Spring, and it is written by Julie Andrews. And right now, in the midst of all kinds of uncertainty and chaos, if you can hear the hills are alive with the sound of music in the back of your brain, I think that's probably a good thing. But listen to these words that she wrote about spring. Nature's bursting everywhere, purple lilacs, perfumed air, geranium in searing reds, baby birds with fuzzy heads, sweep of green fields, flowers wild, blossoms falling, breezes mild, warming sunshine, gentle rain, laburnums due to bloom again, giant cumulus aloft, white and seeming cotton soft, fir trees thrusting forth anew, pale green tips and cones in view. The whole imprinted on my mind more than usual, so defined. Such beauty and tranquility, I wish it were contained in me. Such beauty and tranquility, I wish it were maintained in me. It can be, you know. I invite you to open your mind and focus on all of the seasonal changes and simply absorb them so that that beauty becomes a part of you. Blessed be. It is your gift of love and commitment that enables us to continue as a congregation. Our expenses are the same now as they were prior to our quarantine measures. Our mortgage and utilities and salaries are unchanged. Our thanks to those of you who have mailed your contribution in to our post office box. It is number 15146. Or, the way I remember it, 15146. Rio Rancho 87174. Or you can also use the PayPal button on our website. Please accept our sincere thanks for your contribution. Our reading today is from our hymnal, and it is titled, Our Whole System. It's found at number 537. It was written by a woman named Maria Mitchell, and she has this to say about our whole system. Small as is our whole system compared with the infinitude of creation. Brief as is our life compared with the cycles of time. We are so tethered to all by the beautiful dependencies of law that not only the sparrow's fall is felt to the uttermost bound, but the vibrations set in motion by the words that we utter reach through all space, and the tremor is felt through all time. I'm willing to bet that when you hear the letters CPR in that sequence, you think life-saving. CPR saves lives. It's something that we can all learn to do. Even if we're physically unable to perform it ourselves, we can learn what it takes and how to support the efforts of others in an emergency. As I'm sure you have guessed by now, I want to redefine those three letters today. I want us to be able to recognize the design of life around us, despite our pandemic crisis, to become aware and accountable to life. I want us to know that we have the tools to build hope, realistic, genuine hope, even, or perhaps especially, when hope seems twisted and gone. We've spent some time together here acknowledging the cycles of nature and the patterns of our lives. Right now, that may be hard to hold on to. Our lives have been cracked wide open by the necessary responses to the microscopic coronavirus. It feels like that virus just came out of the blue, and maybe it did. Chaos and random variables are realities, despite the cyclical nature of life. Or maybe the virus is part of a pattern that we lack the ability to perceive clearly. Either way, the cracks in our lives are real. Last week I quoted Leonard Cohen as saying, "There is a crack. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." Which of course begs the question, what do we see in the light? We see many things. We see things that are broken. We see things that are distorted and half done. We see things that are heinous. We see suffering. We see the fragility of life, and we see our own impotence at changing it in keeping with the way we know it ought to be. If we stop looking at this point, we will only ever see the suffering and despair and death. In the vivid brilliance of the light, we see the messy chaos of ourselves and each other bleached away to nothing. So we'd best keep looking. When life is broken wide open and the light floods in, we see many things. We see the majesty and beauty of nature that surrounds us even when we aren't looking. We hear the symphony of life that plays on even when we aren't listening. We feel the rhythmic and powerful pulse of our own hearts that happens without our conscious direction. we experience joy and elation we cannot account for by any rational means. In the vivid brilliance of the light, we find ourselves and each other and the divine all present and accounted for. The light exposes it all. And, being human, we automatically sort it out, seeking meaning and purpose, a plan that we can live with, a plan that we can shape our lives on. We humans have pattern making as our default setting. Our prehistoric ancestors observed the realities of their world and developed stories and cultures that incorporated the cycles and patterns of life around them. They survived because they could find the pattern and make meaningful sense of it. Of course, by the standards of today, they did a questionable job of it. Science no longer supports the concept of a deity throwing lightning bolts or abducting a goddess's daughter for 6 months to explain the forces of nature or the cycle of the seasons. But that does not make our forebears wrong. It makes them part of the eternal development of life at a different point than where we are now. We have new observations and new data with which to configure our understanding of how life works. When we look at what the light coming through those cracks in our previously well-controlled lives reveals, we see more and different data that we need to incorporate and respond to. But here's the thing. Nothing we see now undoes or invalidates the basic cycles and patterns of life. We may have more data that gives us more understanding and more options for responding, but that data still rests on the realities of the cycles and patterns that are built into the universe. Some things just really don't go away. Gravity still holds us in place. The sun still generates photosynthesis and stimulates life as we know it. Night still happens to quiet us. All the patterns and designs of nature still hold. Sadly, we may recognize that changes we've made have worn them down. Climate change is a reality. But then we discover that perhaps it always has been. The west coast of Antarctica has the fossils of a rainforest embedded under the sea and ice. Somehow, millions of years ago, the cycles and patterns continue from then to now in new and different designs as need arises. Which is an example that we need to follow. I have no idea how nature assesses life on this planet and adapts. I just know that it happens with great regularity. And while human beings are notoriously short-sighted, most of us can barely plan out our day without help from some kind of scheduling device, never mind our whole lives or a generation, we need to cultivate a different perspective. Not because doing so will enable us to live for eons, if you'd even want to, but because, as our reading from Maria Mitchell reminds us, we matter. She writes, "The vibrations set in motion by the words that we utter reach throughout all space, and the tremor is felt through all time." We've recently learned that our planet is vibrating less than usual because we're not driving and drilling all over its surface. Our words have energy and power. They set things in motion, They stop things in their tracks. I don't know any way to measure the impact of the vibrations of the spoken word, but that's a real power. I am sure that it's no accident that the Hebrew Bible tells us that God spoke and creation happened. Lesson number 1, words have power. We are creatures who live in the moment. Our life is real right here and right now. What we see in the light, to our joy or horror, and how we live in response to it is immediately important. And it also has long-term effects. One of the things that COVID-19 has refocused our attention on is our connectedness to one another. Who we touch, even with something as delicate as our breath, has a life and death significance. Our words have power to unfold or to inhibit many possibilities. Everything we say and do matters, not just to ourselves, but to the whole cosmos. Now, lest we feel a bit overwhelmed by being responsible for that cosmos, let's bring ourselves back into focus. We are indeed living in a world that has been cracked open by the COVID-19 virus. What we see is both horrifying and wonderful. We can see the nastiness and greed of our previously respectable social structures. Institutions that were perceived as supports in our world are now recognized as sources of greed. Not that they were ever purely good, but their faults and self-serving practices are more highly visible now than ever before. The poverty of large groups of people in the world who have no access to food or water and yet are quarantined to reduce viral contagion is appalling. They are essentially sentenced to death to preserve the lives of those with sufficient power and privilege to shelter safely and remain fed and cared for. And lest we indulge ourselves in the false comfort that, oh, that's not us, it's the Brazilians or the Indians or some other foreign nation that is so callous. Our own New Mexico governor has petitioned Washington for help on behalf of the Navajo Nation, stating clearly that without additional hospital help, we risk wiping out whole tribes of people. So far, the response has been, gee, that's too bad. No action has been documented in response to date. Sometimes the light breaks in and shows us what is truly horrifying about ourselves. And sometimes the light breaks in and shows us amazing and wonderful beauty in humanity. It shows us how we adapt and thrive. It shows us how we can love across huge distances. It shows us how we can create what people need and get it to them simply because they need it, without considering the profit margin. There is a man in Texas named Chris Austin. He's been running a mom-and-pop industry out of his 2 garages in his backyard for a while, making a unique, clear, plastic helmet that kind of looks like an astronaut's helmet, but this helmet delivers oxygen. It's not a ventilator, but for people who don't need a ventilator to breathe for them, it's a highly effective means of increasing their oxygen intake. Think of it as pre-ventilator intervention. And statistically, it has been shown to have dramatically more positive outcome than just putting people on ventilators. There is reduced infection. You don't have to be intubated. This is an amazing piece of equipment. It's also the only one of its kind that has met Food and Drug Administration specs and been involved in clinical studies. Prior to the pandemic, Austin was making a few dozen a week through the efforts of 5 family members and some friends. And then the pandemic hit. Austin doubled his workforce, it's now up to 10, and asked for help from his church. He was limited in production because making a lot more would take a lot more equipment. Here's what he says about what happened. Quote, "We have people showing up that we don't even know that say, 'We're here to help. What can we do?' They don't ask for anything. They don't expect anything. They just say, 'Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it.' It just about brings tears to my eyes," he added. The attention has led to some other acts of extraordinary generosity. Austin said that he recently got a surprise call from Virgin Galactic CEO George Whitesides offering to help him produce more devices. "Chris, I saw what you do and we want to help," Whiteside said, according to Austin, "whatever it takes." Austin told him that he needed more machines to manufacture the devices, but didn't have the cash to pay for them. Later that day, Austin got a call from his New Jersey-based supplier. "Somebody just paid your bill," Austin said he was told. "They'll be shipping tomorrow." With the 4 additional machines, they expect to produce thousands of helmets a week. The goal is to produce 50,000 per week. And here's the thing. In the beginning, when this was his mom and pop venture before the pandemic, the equipment, the helmets, cost $162. Ventilators cost multiple thousands depending upon their features, anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. At this point, the helmets that Austin is making still cost $162. He has received orders from cities all over the world. This is a game changer for the care of compromised patients. And one of the most amazing things is that no one is getting paid for this. His workers are family and volunteers. They're working 16 or more hours a day, 7 days a week, and drawing no wages whatsoever. Would that this exception become the rule? And so the challenge for us becomes, how do we help to make that happen? Here's the takeaway from all of this. Life is designed with cycles and patterns that we can depend on and learn how to use. That long-term constancy gives us the foundation to live in the moment. When it comes to coping with the coronavirus, it's not easy, and it's not going to get any easier for a while. We are faced not just with a vicious virus, but with the cracks in ourselves, both horrifying and inspiring. We are confronted with the knowledge that what we do and what we say has an unimaginably long-term effect. We want to contribute to the health and well-being of our planet and our species. We want to affirm and promote life in keeping with our 7 principles. But our usual ways of doing this are no longer available to us. We feel disconnected. We wonder if our life has the meaning that we thought it did. It does. But without the structures of the ordinary, we become quickly overwhelmed and life becomes extraordinarily difficult. We're likely to find it to be unbearable when nothing seems to make sense. So remind yourself, the foundations of life are still in place. Spring is here, the red bud is blooming, and there are apple blossoms in my backyard. The pigeons are courting at the bird feeder. Life goes on. Even, perhaps especially, here in the desert, that's an important thing to remember. Right now, in the face of suffering and loss and grief of all sorts, it's very important to consciously remind ourselves of the loving, life-affirming foundation that holds the universe together. When you find yourself complaining about the inconveniences of the quarantine, when you find yourself overwhelmed with grief in response to the anxiety and expectation of loss and suffering that pervade our world, when the people that you're in communication with ask if you're okay because your despair about ever getting back to normal is coloring everything, do this. Talk to yourself gently and kindly. Accept your feelings. List them out so that you know what they are. They are real and they are yours. And you are not alone in having them. Remind yourself, too, that they are only feelings, and feelings are not actually facts. Most of us are having a similar response. Then remind yourself of two very important truths. First, the foundation of life still holds. The sun is up, so are the flowers and the birds and the baby animals. Now, that's not how most of us are accustomed to evaluating our lives. We tend to use more self-centered criteria, like our latest grades or raises, or new car, or clothes and social standing. All of those things are designed to impress other people. So let this be about grounding yourself in the foundational realities of life. The cycles and patterns of nature that are bigger than any one of us individually, that support all of us all the time. Second, remind yourself of what you love. This is really, really important. When we despair, we lose touch with almost everything except our despair. It becomes the lens through which we filter everything. So consciously and deliberately change your lens and focus on who and what you love. Make a list for yourself. Name the people and say what it is about them and why you love them. Name the experiences that you love. Name things like chocolate chip ice cream and watermelon and whipped cream and roasted beets and Thanksgiving turkey, whatever it is that brings you delight. Mountain climbing, dancing, tennis, music. Remind yourself of how you are connected to life and all that matters to you. Make a list for yourself and make it your own personal chant. When you're overwhelmed by the daily news, shut it off and tell yourself again about who and what you love. And on that list, include where you feel loved by others. Who loves you also counts. The light coming through these new cracks in our lives shows us good things too. And above all, breathe. I know that that sounds silly and almost too basic to mention, but remember to breathe fully and deeply as you review all of the love in your life. Fear and despair make for shallow breathing. Think about how your breathing changes when you're frightened. If you go to horror movies, I hate them, but when you're scared, your breathing changes and we begin to pant and gasp in short breaths. It's a whole process. How we breathe affects our feelings, even as our feelings affect how we breathe. So choosing to breathe fully and deeply, to remind ourselves of all of the love in our life and all of the experiences that make us feel alive, those things go together. Breathe deeply, list your loves. It will revive you. And we all still have the power of personal choice. Use it. Rest on the cycles and patterns of life and reach for resurrection, which means to bring something that has disappeared or ended back into use or existence. That is the pattern of the spiral of life. We go around and onward and upward all at the same time, letting go of things and then rediscovering and embracing them in new ways as we cycle around. Relax into the cycles and patterns that sustain you in your current crisis, and know that this process is CPR for your soul. We've got this. Shalom. Now I invite you to join me in extinguishing our chalice by reading along with me as the words appear on your screen, and then we will extinguish our flames together. Though the flame is gone from our sight, the patterns remain and the cycles continue. May our participation in the fullness of life continue to grow as we carry our awareness in our hearts. Shalom and blessed be. And now I invite you to quiet your mind one last time and open your heart for the benediction. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you wherever you are, whoever you're with, and whatever you need. Shalom.